The Flintstones made cartoons safe for grown-ups. It is the granddaddy of every animated sitcom you love today. But the modern Stone Age family is still hiding strange secrets. Did you know the very first version of this show was lost for over 30 years, buried in a warehouse? Did you know one main character was banned from a product for 25 years? Today, we're uncovering 20 hidden truths about the Flintstones, 1960. That includes a secret link to another famous cartoon family who lived in the sky. Number 1. The lost pilot nobody was supposed to see. Before the show, there was a version almost nobody ever watched. Back in 1959, Hanna-Barbera made a short test film to sell the idea. It was called The Flagstones. It ran for about 90 seconds. The voices were different too. Fred and Barney were played by Dawes Butler, the man who later voiced Yogi Bear. Betty was played by June Foray, a famous cartoon voice. Only one actor from that test film stayed for the real show. That was Gene Vander Pyle. The little film was made only to show sponsors. It was never meant for television. After the pitch, it was packed away and forgotten. For more than 30 years, nobody knew where it was. Then, in 1994, a team of researchers found it inside a storage warehouse in New York City. Cartoon Network aired it for the very first time that same year. Fans finally got to see the rough draft of a legend. The show that shaped television history began life as a lost home movie sitting in a dusty box. Number 2. It was never made for kids. Here is something most people get wrong. The Flintstones was not created for children. It was built for adults. When it premiered on September 30th, 1960, it aired at 8:30 at night. That was prime time, the same slot used by grown-up dramas and comedies. It even had a laugh track, just like the live sitcoms of the day. Hanna-Barbera had a problem. Their other cartoons were loved by adults, but they were still seen as kid stuff. The studio wanted a cartoon that grown-ups would take seriously, so they wrote about jobs, marriage, money trouble, and bowling night. The jokes were aimed at parents, not toddlers. The network was nervous. They worried adults would never sit still for a cartoon at night. The show proved them wrong and became a huge hit. Only later, in reruns, did it turn into a Saturday morning favorite for kids. The cavemen you watched as a child were originally written for your grandparents. Number 3. Fred and Barney sold cigarettes. This one shocks people today. For its first 2 seasons, the Flintstones was sponsored by Winston Cigarettes, and the stars pitched the product. In short commercials, Fred and Barney would sneak away for a smoke break, while Wilma and Betty did the yard work. They would light up and relax. The famous slogan played along. Winston tastes good, like a cigarette should. Back then, this was totally normal. The stars of a show were expected to sell their sponsor's product right in the ad break. Nobody thought twice about 2 cartoon dads puffing away. It sounds impossible now, but these ads really ran on national television. You can still find them online today. It is proof that this show was aimed at adults from the start. No cigarette company pays to reach 4-year-olds. The lovable family man Fred Flintstone once told grown-ups across America that a certain cigarette tasted just right. Number 4. Jackie Gleason almost pulled the plug. The Flintstones did not come from nowhere. It was closely based on a hit show called The Honeymooners. Fred was a loud, lovable schemer, just like Ralph Cramden. Barney was the goofy best friend, just like Ed Norton.
Мы играем каждую неделю по баксу за лунку. Ну и, естественно...
The co-creator, William Hanna, later admitted the truth. He said, "The Honeymooners was the funniest show on the air, and they used it as the basis for the whole idea." The star of The Honeymooners was Jackie Gleason, and he noticed right away. His lawyers told him he could probably have the Flintstones pulled right off the air. He thought hard about suing, but then he stopped himself. He did not want to go down in history as the man who killed Fred Flintstone, so he let it go. Because one comedy legend chose not to sue, the most famous cartoon family in the world got to survive. Number 5. Yabba Dabba Doo was a happy accident. The most famous words in the show were never in the script. Fred's catchphrase, Yabba Dabba Doo, came from the actor himself. Alan Reed played Fred. One day, the script simply told him to shout the word Yahoo. Reed thought that was boring, so he made up something better on the spot. Yabba Dabba Doo! Where did it come from? Reed said the idea came from an old hair product jingle. The slogan was, "A little dabble do ya." He borrowed the sound of that word and turned it into cartoon history. The director loved it, and it stuck. That silly, made-up phrase became one of the most quoted lines in television. It is printed on shirts, mugs, and toys to this day. The single most famous thing Fred Flintstone ever says was not written by any writer. A bored actor invented it in one take.
Наверное, нам стоит идти.
Barney Rubble was voiced by Mel Blanc, the legend behind Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. He also made the barking sounds for the pet dinosaur Dino. But in 1961, tragedy nearly ended it all. Blanc was in a terrible head-on car crash. He fell into a coma for about 2 weeks. Doctors were not sure he would survive. He spent more than 2 months in the hospital and came out in a full-body cast. Most studios would have simply replaced him. Hanna-Barbera refused. Instead, they brought the recording equipment to his home. Blanc lay flat in his cast in his own bedroom and spoke his lines from there. Sometimes as many as 16 people crowded into the room to record the show around him. He kept playing Barney while his broken body slowly healed. It is one of the most loyal stories in television. The voice of Barney Rubble came from a man in a full-body cast who simply refused to quit. Number 7. The show was almost called something else. The name Flintstones was not the first choice. It was not even the second. The test film was called The Flagstones. But there was a problem. A popular newspaper comic strip called Hi and Lois already had a family named the Flagstones. The names were too close, so the studio needed a change. For a short while, the show was going to be called The Gladstones. That name came from an old telephone exchange in Los Angeles. It did not last either. Finally, someone landed on the Flintstones, and it fit perfectly. Stone, rock, flint. It matched the whole caveman world. Imagine how different things might feel today. Kids could have grown up eating Gladstone's vitamins. Fans might be shouting about Fred Gladstone. The most recognizable cartoon name of all time was really just the third guess on a list. Number 8. You first saw it in the wrong colors. Here is a strange twist about the early episodes. When the Flintstones first aired, most people watched it in black and white. That is because color televisions were rare and expensive in 1960. Yet the show was drawn and filmed in full color the entire time. The episodes, the credits, and even the commercials were all made in color from day one. The color was simply waiting for the world to catch up. When color televisions became common and the reruns began, viewers finally saw Bedrock the way it was always meant to look. Fred's orange outfit, Wilma's white dress, the green hills. For years, families had no idea the show was already bursting with color on the film reel. Millions of people watched an early Flintstones episode in gray, never knowing the real thing was in full color the whole time. Number 9. The theme song you know came later. Sing the Flintstones theme in your head. You are probably humming Meet the Flintstones, but that song was not there at the start. For the first 2 seasons, the show used a completely different opening. It was an instrumental tune called Rise and Shine. It had no words at all. It was bouncy and fun, but it was not the song fans remember. The famous Meet the Flintstones song, with the words about a modern Stone Age family, did not arrive until the 3rd season. Once it appeared, it took over. It became one of the most played television songs in history. Today, almost nobody remembers the original tune. If you go back and watch the earliest episodes, the opening will sound strange and unfamiliar. The catchiest cartoon theme ever written was actually a late addition, and the real first song has been nearly forgotten. Number 10. Pebbles was supposed to be a boy. In the 3rd season, the studio decided the Flintstones should have a baby. Their first plan was a boy named Fred Jr. Then a phone call changed everything. A man from the Ideal Toy Company heard about the baby. He asked Joseph Barbera if it would be a boy or a girl. Barbera said a boy. The toy man was disappointed. He explained that if the baby were a girl, they could make a wonderful doll and a huge deal. Barbera thought for a second. Then he simply said, "It's a girl." And just like that, Pebbles was born instead of Fred Jr. The choice paid off in a massive way. Barbera later said the company sold around 3 million Pebbles dolls within the first couple of months. One quick business decision created one of the most famous cartoon babies ever. If a toy maker had not made that call, Pebbles Flintstone might never have existed at all. Number 11. Wilma's pregnancy made real history. When Wilma became pregnant on the show, it was a bigger deal than it sounds. At the time, cartoons almost never showed real pregnancy or birth. Babies usually just arrived, dropped off by a stork. The Flintstones broke that rule. Wilma was shown expecting a child and going to a hospital to give birth. She may be the first cartoon character ever shown pregnant this way. But the real twist is behind the microphone. Jean Vanderpyle was the voice of Wilma, and she was actually pregnant in real life while recording those very episodes. It gets even stranger. She gave birth to her own son on the exact same day the birth episode first aired. Life and cartoon lined up perfectly. As Wilma welcomed baby Pebbles on screen, her voice actress was welcoming a real baby at home. Sometimes the story behind the show is even sweeter than the show itself. Number 12. One woman played the whole family's women. Jean Vanderpyle was the heart of the show, even if you never saw her face.
Barney, where's Fred?
But she also voiced baby Pebbles at the same time. That means a mother and her newborn daughter were played by the same person, talking to each other in the same scenes. That alone is impressive. But her talent reached even further. When Hanna-Barbera made their next big cartoon family, she was there too. That show was The Jetsons, set in the future among flying cars and robots. Vanderpyle voiced Rosie, the family robot maid. So the same voice that raised a caveman baby also ran a home in outer space. She was the last surviving member of the original main cast. One gifted actress quietly connected the Stone Age and the Space Age using nothing but her voice. Number 13. A tiny green alien divided fans forever. By the final season, the writers needed something new, so they added one of the strangest characters in the show's history. His name was the Great Gazoo. He was a small, floating green alien from the future. He was stuck on Earth as a punishment. He could only be seen by Fred, Barney, the children, and the pets. He would try to help the two men, but he usually caused more trouble than he fixed. Gazoo arrived in 1965, near the very end of the run. The comedian Harvey Korman gave him his voice. Fans have argued about him ever since. Some love his weird energy. Many others feel he broke the spirit of the show. To this day, the Great Gazoo is often blamed as the moment the cartoon lost its way. A pint-sized alien from the future became the most controversial thing to ever land in Bedrock. Number 14. Critics hated it at first. The Flintstones is beloved today, but the early reviews were brutal. The night after it premiered, the show got savaged. One trade magazine, Variety, called it a pen and ink disaster. A famous New York newspaper critic dubbed it an inked disaster too. That entire television season was later described as a vast wasteland of weak programming. The Flintstones was lumped right in with the junk. Even decades later, some serious critics still looked down on it. They mocked its simple animation and its borrowed stories. But the audience did not listen. Families kept watching, week after week, year after year. The show stayed on the air, then ran in reruns for 50 years. It became a true classic and a piece of pop culture history. The critics who called it a disaster were proven completely wrong. Sometimes the show everyone dismisses is the one everyone remembers. Number 15. It broke a wall at the Emmys. For all the harsh reviews, the Flintstones still made history fast. In 1961, it earned a major honor. It became the first animated series ever nominated for the Emmy for Outstanding Comedy Series. That was a big deal. Cartoons were treated as throwaway entertainment back then. Nobody expected a show about cavemen to stand next to the biggest live comedies in the country. But there it was, on the list of the best. It did not win in the end. It lost to the Jack Benny program, a giant of the time. Still, the nomination alone proved something important. A cartoon could be judged as real quality television. That door had never been opened before. The modern Stone Age family kicked it wide open. Years before The Simpsons earned praise, Fred Flintstone showed the world that an animated show could be taken seriously. Number 16. The voices were a hidden hall of fame. The cast of this cartoon was packed with legends. Most viewers had no idea who they were hearing. Barney was voiced by Mel Blanc, often called the man of 1,000 voices. He was the sound of Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, and dozens more. Betty was first voiced by Bea Benaderet, a beloved radio and television star. She later became famous on shows like Petticoat Junction and the Beverly Hillbillies. Fred was voiced by Alan Reed, a seasoned radio actor with a huge, booming voice. Behind the simple cartoon faces stood some of the finest voice talent in the business. These were not random performers. They were masters of sound at the top of their craft. When you laughed at Fred and Barney as a child, you were listening to a hidden hall of fame hard at work. Number 17. Fred Flintstone played a mob boss. This fact surprises almost everyone. The actor who voiced Fred also appeared in one of the most famous films of the era. Just 1 year after the Flintstones began, Alan Reed showed up in Breakfast at Tiffany's. That was the classic movie starring Audrey Hepburn. Reed did not play a comic caveman there. He played a mob boss named Sally Tomato. His character was a criminal locked up in prison, receiving visits from the film's heroine. So the same warm voice that shouted Yabba Dabba Doo also played a hardened gangster on the big screen. It is a wild mix of roles. A lovable cartoon dad and a movie mafia boss came from the very same man. Next time you watch Breakfast at Tiffany's, listen closely. The prisoner in that story is secretly the voice of Fred Flintstone. Number 18. Real celebrities got turned to stone. The Flintstones loved to play with famous names. Real celebrities of the day were often written into the show as Stone Age versions of themselves. The trick was simple. Take a star's name and twist it to fit Bedrock. The singer and actress Anne Margaret became Anne Margrock. The movie star Tony Curtis became Stony Curtis. There were many more of these clever swaps. Even other hit television shows got parodied inside the cartoon. It was a fun wink for the adults watching at home. They would recognize the real star hiding behind the silly rock pun. Kids just saw a funny character. Grown-ups saw a joke about someone famous. It kept the show feeling fresh and current, even in a world of dinosaurs and cavemen. Long before it was common, this cartoon was turning real Hollywood stars into playful Stone Age guests. Number 19. Betty was banned from the vitamin bottle. Here is one of the strangest legacies of all. In 1968, a company began making Flintstones vitamins shaped like the characters. Kids everywhere grew up chewing them. Fred was there, Wilma was there, Barney, Dino, Pebbles, and even the little alien Gazoo made the cut. But one main character was left out for years, Betty Rubble. For about 25 years, Barney's own wife was missing from the bottle. The makers gave odd reasons. They said her thin waist made the vitamin break easily. They also said she looked too much like Wilma. Fans were not happy. A real campaign grew to bring Betty back. Finally, the company held a public vote. More than 20,000 people called in, and over 90% wanted Betty included. In 1995, she was finally added, replacing the family car. It took 25 years and a nationwide vote to give Betty Rubble her rightful place. Number 20. It beat every cartoon until The Simpsons. For a show that critics once called a disaster, the ending is remarkable. The Flintstones became the most successful animated show on television for about 30 years. Nothing topped it. That reign only ended when a new family arrived, a yellow one named The Simpsons. Think about the empire it built. There was a theatrical movie in 1966. There were vitamins, cereals, toys, and countless spin-offs. There was even a big live-action film in 1994 with real actors. All of it grew from one nervous idea about a caveman with a job and a temper. The show ran for 6 seasons and just 166 original episodes. Yet it never truly left the air. It shaped every animated sitcom that followed, from The Simpsons to Family Guy. A rejected little pitch film from a warehouse became the foundation of an entire kind of television. Beneath the rock puns and dinosaurs, The Flintstones was really about ordinary people. A tired working dad, a patient wife, and the friends next door who make life bearable. That is why it lasted. So here is our question. Which cartoon family feels the most like your own? Tell us below. And hit subscribe, because every week we dig up the secrets hidden inside the shows you thought you knew.